In the last short video lecture, I showed you the Enforcement and Compliance History online website known as ECHO. We went to this link and I shared with you that you can type in your town or city and look at the various facilities that have been in non-compliance with our state and federal legislation. I still want to pursue this a little bit further, so let's go back to that website. What's on the screen in front of you is a part of the echo.epa.gov website. This is the portion of the website that allows you to do comparisons with different states via an interactive mapping tool. So currently what I'm showing right now is a map of the United States that's depicting the number of facilities located within each state that are supposed to report to the federal government in regards to the Clean Air Act or the Clean Water Act or the Toxic Release Inventory. So this map of the United States is indicating that states in dark blue have the highest number of reporting facilities to the federal government in regards to environmental laws. So California and Texas fall in that category. And then the dark blue indicates that there's between 404 and 630 facilities within that state that report to the state and federal government regarding environmental compliance. And Pennsylvania falls in this category, as well as New York and a couple other states. And then we have states that have the lower number of facilities that have to report to the Fed government, and most of the Midwestern United States and New England falls in this category. So this map is just strictly looking at the number of facilities that have to report to the state and federal government regarding environmental compliance. And by the way, I have the 2010 data set depicted here, but this data really doesn't change over time. The states remain to be shaded the same color up through 2014. So let's look at another data set. Let's look at facilities with full compliance. And we're going to refresh the map. And now this map is depicting those facilities with full compliance evaluations. And it looks like the most number of facilities that undergo full compliance evaluations are located in California. And then second most number of facilities are located in like Texas and Pennsylvania and New York as well. And let's see if this data changes over time. So I'm going to bring this back to 2010, and we'll click and we'll see if the state's colors change. There was a slight change there between 2011 and 2012. New York was added to the darker blue category, this category right here. 2013 and New York was removed. In 2014 it was added back on. So they had some facilities come into reporting compliance requirements and some facilities leave the reporting compliance requirements. Let's try the next one, and that is full compliance evaluations, and it's likely that the map's going to look very similar. And let's look at facilities with violations. So I'm going to click here and refresh the map. And now we're seeing a map of the United States with the facilities that have violations. The states with the most facilities with violations include Texas and Pennsylvania, among other facilities or states located around the Great Lakes region. So Pennsylvania is categorized as being a state with facilities which have the most violations. And let's see if this has changed over time. So we're going to go back to 2010, and we'll click to see if the coloration of the states change at all. Looks like there may have been a change there. Yes, right here. The state changed colors. And Ohio ended up being added in 2014 to this category with the most number of facilities. As compared to the prior years, it was in this category. So it's a good quick look, knowing that if you live in Pennsylvania near Harrisburg Area Community College, we do live in a state that has the most number of facilities with violations being reported in relation to environmental compliance. Now, let's look at facilities with high priority violations. And the map is going to change color. There's quite a few states that have 0 facilities with high priority violations. So that's a good thing. If your state's colored white, that's good. If you're colored dark blue, not so good, but actually we don't have any dark blue states on the screen, but instead we're in this category here. Between 58 and 123 facilities with high priority violations have been reported in California and Texas. And then Pennsylvania falls into this category. So let's take a look at enforcement actions and see how that maps out across the United States. And this is depicting facilities with formal enforcement actions. So let's see if this has changed at all over time. That's the 2010 year, 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014. A slight change between 2013 and 2014 in this area. So it appears that the category of 50 to 124 facilities with formal enforcement actions is being depicted for California, Texas, and Pennsylvania. Have you seen the trend that it's these 3 states that tend to be the ones with the most enforcement or compliance issues? So let's skip down to penalties and see which states have the highest amount of penalty assessed to them because of violations with various federal or state environmental regulations. It appears that the state of Texas falls into the category with the highest number of penalties being assessed. And then Pennsylvania is in this category between almost $2,000 and $1.4 million of penalties assessed. Let's look at whether or not this changed over time. So we're going to go back to 2010. And in 2010, Pennsylvania was actually listed in this dark blue category here with having enforcement actions and fines that were assessed between $5.5 million and $11.4 million. It was in the same category as Texas. Let's see what happened in 2011. It dropped to this category, Pennsylvania did, to $1.4 million to $5.5 million in total penalties assessed, and Texas also dropped into that category. So they must have done something to improve their facility operations because they weren't being fined as much. And the data changes slightly. Some states are shifting around a little bit. Here we have a state in which it ends up bumping up a category. So some things may have been going askew in regards to the facilities meeting the compliance requirements of the federal statutes. And then that state is doing better. And Pennsylvania is actually back to the lower penalty assessment category. Now let's look at formal enforcement actions that were enforced along with a penalty. And we're going to go back to 2010. And it appears that the states in dark blue have the most number of formal enforcement actions with penalties, including California and Texas. And here we go. Pennsylvania is falling into that next lower category of having the second most number of formal enforcement actions and with a penalty assessed. And Washington State popped up in this scenario as well. And this is for the year 2010. If we click on 2011, it stays the same. 2012, 2013, and 2014. Slight change with California there. It dropped down a category between 2013 and 2014. One other thing that I want to share with you about this website is that there's data associated with each coloration of these states for the different items that we've clicked on. So for right now, we're on the data set of total penalties assessed, and Pennsylvania is in this aqua blue range. So if I wanted to find out specifically what was going on with Pennsylvania, I could click on the state, and it would show me that there were 1,679 facilities assessed 1,092 of those had evaluations, 417 of those had alleged violations, 28 of them had high priority violations, and there were 198 facilities with formal enforcement actions, and the total penalty assessed was $2.4 million for those facilities in Pennsylvania. So you can actually find data associated with this topic. So if I go back to enforcement actions and I want to click on facilities with any enforcement action and I refresh the map, I can then scroll in and click on Pennsylvania, and again it will give me the data pertaining to the facilities. So it's a neat feature if you want to dig into some more information about these facilities. Another aspect of the ECHO website is that you can analyze trends for an individual state. So I have selected the state of Pennsylvania, and we are now looking at data pertaining to the environmental compliance activities of facilities within the state of Pennsylvania. So here in this part of the graphic, it's depicting the number of facilities. There are 932 synthetic minor facilities, 304 minor other facilities, and 556 major facilities. So if we clicked on this, we might be able to pull more data up about those individual facilities. And I can also ask them to plot out the same pie chart for the federal level. And this is now listing all the facilities that have to meet compliance requirements within the state of Pennsylvania, since I clicked on that pie chart. So we'll go back again to this screen. Now, this chart here looks at compliance evaluations, and it's indicating the green bar lists the number of facilities in full compliance evaluation for the state level, and the dark maroon bar indicates full compliance at the federal level with EPA. And we can actually change this graphic to look at facilities evaluated by facility size, or number of full compliance evaluations, and stack tests reported, and so on. So we can actually change this graphic. Let's look at stack tests reported and see how that changes the graphic. Okay, so the dark blue indicates stack tests that were passed. This magenta purple indicates that there's no results. The light violet purple indicates that they're pending results, and then this aqua blue, which is I think right at the bottom of the bar chart, indicates that there's been failed stack tests. So this is just giving you an overview for the entire state. Now here, in terms of violations, you can have it plot, how many facilities had violations, and it'll do it based on per year. So let's look at all facilities with alleged violations between 2011 and 2014. And it's telling us that in 2011 there were about 350 facilities. 2012 that rose or increased to 450 facilities, and then it came back down to about 400 facilities in 2014. So it gives us an idea of how many facilities within Pennsylvania are not meeting their permit requirements. And then this looks at high priority violations and the number of high priority violations that occur, and it gives you data for the state and the EPA. The enforcement actions are looked at in this portion of the state dashboard, and we'll just look at the number of facilities subject to enforcement, and it breaks it into categories in terms of if it's state, formal or informal enforcement, or federal informal or formal enforcement. And then this then looks at the total penalties assessed. So it's just another way of looking at the data more specifically for the state of Pennsylvania in regards to how well or how poorly the facilities in Pennsylvania are meeting the compliance requirements of our environmental regulations, both at the state and at the federal level. I challenge you to investigate pollution sources in your neighborhood and explore your state's performance through this Pennsylvania Echo Enforcement Compliance History website.